stop stressing about whether people are going to like your speech or not. And the reason that is because it all comes down to something called the corresponding observer phenomenon. And I made that up. But I've used this phenomenon to help me say a couple speeches in front of 2,000 people a few times with relative ease, win some standing ovations, and win a few public speaking competitions. And essentially, what I want to stress in this video is that your speech is not made for everyone. There's only one thing we have to truly focus on in our speeches here in order to win people over, in order to be liked, and that is simply breaking patterns. But keeping in mind that, once again, our speech is not for everyone. So what we achieve by breaking patterns, we essentially stand out from the crowd, we attract the right people, and we are remembered. Breaking patterns is very, very powerful in our speeches. And if we can just focus on that, and hopefully with enough effort, we can successfully break patterns with our speeches, with our talks, with our presentations, we will be able to stand out from the crowd, attract the right people, and be remembered in terms of our message and what we said. And how do we do that? There's a few ways we can do that, but let me just quickly refer to my laptop to guide me. All right, essentially what breaking patterns is simply just doing things differently. It's literally just, instead of saying the typical good morning everyone, how are you, blah blah blah, welcome to our second meeting of the month, etc., etc., instead of just following the daily patterns which we're so used to, instead of just sticking to the same structure which we follow every single day, we have to now step out of that mold and consciously try and change it and tweak it. And so it is really just, it's not some big crazy pattern break which makes people think, wow, this guy is so controversial and he doesn't care about anything but, I don't know, Andrew Tate kind of stuff. So what we're going for essentially is little minor tweaks in our everyday dialogue and conversation, in our speeches, that'll just snap people out of the loop. It'll make people sit up in their seats. It'll make people remember, oh, this guy's got that little quirky thing about his character. This girl tends to do this and that with her hands when she speaks. I remember that. It stands out. It's unique. I like it. So what a breaking a pattern would look like is, instead of just saying hello in a text, instead of just saying hello everyone, instead of just saying hi, we want to go and break patterns, and we want to go full cowboy mode here. That looks like more of a magician's hat, but you get the idea. We want to go cowboy, and we want to say howdy. We want to say hola with our cute little island flower there. We want to say bonjour. We want to say, what's another word? Ciao or whatever. I don't know. So instead of, that's a little minor pattern break. Instead of just saying hello, how are you, we want to say hola, how are you? Bonjour, how are you? Hey, grazie, how are you? I don't know, whatever the other languages are, okay? Next up, in all of my speeches, I always begin with a story. The best TED Talks I listen to begin with stories. The best Toastmaster speeches that win, stories. Matthew Dix, the guy who wrote the book Storyworthy, the best YouTube videos, they all have stories. So I literally always open up, whether it's an interview question, tell us a little bit about yourself, whether it's introduce yourself to the class, whether it's anything, a speech, a presentation, no matter how formal or informal or casual it is, there's always a story. So that is a very good pattern break, because in stories we can be ourselves, we can laugh, we can say personal reflections, we can have our own transformations, our own growth. We can make it unique, we can make it personal and authentic. So that's a very big pattern break. Something else, a little minor example, how are you? Instead of just saying hi, how are you, and just answering, I'm good, thanks, how are you? Fine, thanks, and how are you? I'm amazing, thanks, how are you? We can break that pattern and say, I'm better than you. I got this from one of my high school teachers. He would, whenever, or not always, I once asked him, hey sir, how's it going, how are you, or something like that, and he was just like, I'm better than you. And we walked away both laughing. That was that was a big pattern break. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't expecting that. And so it created humor in the process, but it's also very memorable. How are you? I'm better than you. And then 1, 2, 3. This is an example, another little example of how to break patterns. If we ever gonna name 3 things, here's 3 reasons why you have to subscribe. Reason 1, I'm good looking. Reason 2, I am quite funny. Reason 3, I make really insightful videos with amazing illustrations and diagrams. But what I did there was number 1 and then number 2. Instead of just following the typical order 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, I went and I broke it with a middle finger. So maybe people would have noticed that. Maybe people would have remembered that. Maybe they would have woken up and then finally paid more attention to what we're saying. So it's all these little tweaks like that. And then another little technique or something I use in my speeches is, here's something I like to call the ... And I use it in the beginning of this video. The reason you should stop stressing about whether people will like your speech is because of something called corresponding, what did I call it? Corresponding observer phenomenon. I made it up in about 10 seconds. But this is very cool because it's called something, here's something I like to call the ... phenomenon or message or structure or framework. What it does is it just makes whatever you're going to say your own. So the only place where people can ever get that little bit of information is from you in your speech. And if they ever remember that again, it always links back to you. Does that make sense? It's kind of like you inventing the cure to some disease, and now whenever someone goes and has the disease or gets the vaccine to the disease or something, they always have to take the Luca pill, or they have the Luca virus, or you know what I'm saying? So, okay, that's not really a cool thing to be associated with, but you get the idea, okay? It's always tying back to us. So hence being remembered, we might connect the people and we might attract the right people because, hey, maybe that was a funny joke. So those are examples of breaking patterns. This is why we want to break patterns. We stand out from everyone else, we can connect to the right people, and we can be remembered. Now, there's a very important point here. Breaking patterns is essential because it's only through breaking patterns that we connect to the right people. I'm talking about the people that are going to wait in line after you speak to come and talk to you. I'm talking about the people that are going to put you in the right rooms and connect you to more important people. I'm talking about people that are going to spread your message through word of mouth. There was another good example, the ones who will invite you to come speak at other events. These are the people that want you, that like you, that will wait in line for you, that'll bring you aboard, that'll take you along, that'll connect you to other people. Those are the people that you're going to benefit a lot more from that by breaking patterns and potentially scaring away or shying away a large part of the crowd with your weird little bit of humor or your weird little pattern interrupt or your weird little I'm better than you humor. We might scare away a few people with that, but we're going to connect a lot more to the right people that'll bring us a lot more in return. So we actually want the right people. And it's fair to acknowledge that when we speak in front of a crowd, there is objectively, or what a good speech looks like and sounds like is relatively objective, right? When we say a good speech, which the majority of people will like, we tend to be confident, we tend to have forward movement, open torso, we tend to be warm, we tend to be smiling, we tend to have jokes, we tend to contrast that humor with a deep realization at the end of it. We tend to have a story that connects to people. They are objective, we can say an objectively good speech and still be liked by the majority of the crowd, right? So don't be afraid of losing the crowd, of losing the applause, of the appraisal of the masses, okay? If we still follow the right rules and the right structure and we have good check marks when we say a speech and we look something like this and we pause and we let our message diffuse into the crowd and we speak well, etc., yes, we will appeal to the crowd. But in order to get to the right people, in order to have depth, in order to really cut deep with our message and to speak to the right people, we actually have to be ourselves. And that's essentially what the whole point of breaking patterns is. It's to bring a little bit of our personality, our charm, our humor out, so that people can hopefully look at that and connect to that and like that. And in turn, we can attract and connect the right people for us, for our message, for our mission. Does that make sense? So, with a lot of my videos on this channel, I do speak about almost connecting to the masses in terms of, hey, here's how you deal with your nerves. Hey, here's how you speak. Here's how you play around with your tone and your speed and your pauses. And here's how you play around with your hands and your body language and your warmth and your competence and how you contrast the two. Here's how you say a story with humor and then you contrast that with a deep reflection. So that's how we appeal to the masses. But in order to truly connect one-on-one to the right person, to the right viewer, we actually have to be ourselves. We actually have to try and break patterns in our own way. These are just some personal examples which I have found, which I've come across, which I quite liked, and how I've used them. And you can try that for yourself as well, but we really have to just focus on breaking patterns and in turn still trying to find our people, connecting to our people, right? Because our message might not be for everyone. We might be speaking at an alumni gathering where it's just middle-aged men. And if we're going to talk about feminism or something, that message might not resonate with all those men, for example. But if we can say a story and say, we talk about how we've transitioned from being this, I don't know, guy who thought women should always make fish and chips to now women are actually the best partners in business or something like that, right? And we tell our own story and our deep reflection and we say our own pattern break and we show our own little bit of vulnerability and we say, here's something I like to call the fish and chips phenomenon or something. People might connect to that, resonate to that, and that is how we might connect to different people, to the right people for our, I don't know, feminism movement towards the middle-aged men masses. So that's the video. I hope you got some value, some insight from this. I hope I explained it in the right way. Let me just quickly get a thumbnail. And that should be that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me in the comments or check the link in the description because it is free and I can give you some personalized advice there. And I'm speaking a bit way too fast for my liking, but I'm a bit nervous on camera. So take care, good luck, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.